Today we're at the A465 Heads of the Valley scheme, which is in South Wales. It's a new 11-mile section of dual carriageway, which is going to link existing sections of the A465. So it's a strategic route. It's a very expensive scheme. I think it's one of the most expensive schemes ever commissioned by Welsh Government at £590 million. So we're doing all the stage 3 safety audits on this, which is basically looking at the finished scheme and just picking up any potential road safety hazards and providing recommendations to improve road safety. So this road is opening in phases, and so every time a section is completed, we come out and safety audit it. The idea is to make sure that there's no significant road hazards with the scheme once it's all fully open to traffic, and that's why we're here. So this is one of the viaducts that crosses a valley along the scheme, and alongside we've got a pedestrian and cycle route which links a residential area to Merthyr Tydfil town. And one of the things we picked up here, previously there wasn't this guardrail here to segregate pedestrians and cyclists from mainline traffic, so we thought extra protection was needed here to stop any interaction between vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists. So this is a sort of feature that's been installed after one of our site visits, and it's good to see that the contractor acting on our recommendations, because as you can see now, you've got good separation between pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles. Another thing we picked up was that you've got quite a critical advanced direction sign behind us there. And when it was installed, it's actually not visible to road users because you've got the high parapet, which actually obstructs the lower section of the sign. So you could get the issue of drivers getting confused, braking late, or being hesitant as they get to the junction, and you've got the risk of shunts and side swipe type collisions.
So yeah, we're just continuing along the NMU route, and we're just heading up the hill to, which is a residential development which basically is providing access to the main town. But as you can see, it's a very steep gradient, which is beyond the normal maximum permitted maximum gradient, 10% for footways, footpaths.
Yeah, I think in this sort of situations where you're stuck with the existing topography, there's not a lot that you can do with the gradient. So the only sorts of things that we would probably recommend is advanced warning for pedestrians and cyclists, or cyclists in particular, of the steep gradient, just so that they're aware. Because if you get novice cyclists coming down here, they may not be aware and they could build up speed very quickly, and then maybe lose control as they get to the bottom here. So the contractor is looking at those issues at the moment, and I believe those measures are going to go in. Now we're standing quite close to the main road here, and we've got a concrete vertical barrier there which transitions into a steel barrier. And one of the things that we check is the connection between the steel barrier and the concrete barrier to make sure that's correct. Because one of the issues you can get is that if the stiffening of the barrier happens over a short distance, and if a vehicle that loses control hits the barrier, there's a risk that the barrier could wrap around the vehicle and then bring it to an abrupt halt, which obviously would increase the severity of any injury to the occupants. So here you've got a steel barrier which progressively gets stiffened, but it appears to stiffen too quickly. So that's one of the questions that we would ask the contractor to double check that with the manufacturer's requirements, just to make sure that the installer has installed it correctly to minimise any risk to road users if they do lose control in this area.
Previously, this was overhanging into the footway cycleway, so created a potential strike hazard. So obviously pedestrians, cyclists hit the head on the corner of the sign, and so they've made some modifications. They've shifted the sign over. They've added an extra support post on the end, obviously because you've got a large extent of sign face sort of exposed. Obviously, a sign of this size, it requires full vehicle restraint system around it, because obviously if an errant vehicle was to hit a sign of this size, it probably wouldn't deform, and it would cause a vehicle to come to abrupt halt.
Yeah, so you get quite serious injury if a vehicle hits a sign like this. Historically, signs like this weren't protected with any safety barrier, but as the road safety standards have improved and evolved, it's a requirement on high-speed roads now that anything like this, which is a roadside obstruction, is suitably protected. So as you can see, we've got full barrier protection on the approach to this sign now, and it's set back a sufficient distance from the barrier as well, so it meets all the requirements. It's one of the sort of critical things we will check when we're auditing the main line off the carriageway. Wow, look how high we are.
Yes, so following our previous site visit, obviously we've got concerns with the very steep gradients of this NMU route, and they've, as a result, they've put in 2 sets of signs, trial brakes, and then they've gone for a 10% gradient further down. So
it's good to see the contractor acting on our recommendations. These trial brake signs are traditionally used when you drive through a potentially flooded road, just to encourage drivers to test their brakes. They've used these signs here, so it's a bit of a novel solution. It's one we'll probably discuss with the contractor at the next stage, but at least they've provided something which is better than nothing, which was here previously. Yeah, this is probably one of the prime spots to view the new road, isn't it? You can see it snaking through the valleys. But it's good to be involved in these high-profile schemes. Because you really have to use your skills and knowledge of design standards, road safety research, best practice, and apply them to schemes like this. At the end of the day, really making a difference in terms of road safety for everyone, and just to make sure that the road's going to be operating as safely as possible, and if there are collisions, hopefully minimise the risk to vehicle occupants, motorcyclists, and reduce the risk of injury to pedestrians and cyclists. So here across this scheme we've got the Taff Trail, which is a national trail, which I believe it runs from Cardiff to the Brecon Beacons. Cycle route 8 there as well, and the route obviously has been realigned to a footbridge over there, so it crosses the main road on a brand new footbridge with ramps leading up to it. So yeah, that's another thing that we look at. Okay, yeah, so we've moved up the road now. We're on one of the slip roads that joins the main line, and one of the things that we picked out on a previous visit was a potential roadside hazard, which was this quite big culvert, which is rock lined, which is quite deep. So one of the concerns we had here, if vehicles did lose control as they accelerate towards the main line, and if they left the road towards the left, they could potentially end up into quite a big culvert there, with the risk of vehicles overturning or impacting into the rocks. So one of the recommendations here would be provide some mitigation in the form of a vehicle restraint system, i.e. a safety barrier. So as you can see further down, there is a safety barrier there. So one of the most economical recommendations would be to extend that barrier so it covers this hazard.
it's under temporary traffic management, 40 miles per hour, but eventually this will be a 70 mile per hour dual carriageway section. So yeah, once it's up to the full speed, we'd expect the measures to be implemented by that point.
Okay, so now we're at one of the new grade separated junctions, which is a dumbbell roundabout arrangement. And one of the things that we picked up at these sort of junctions was the potential for road users overshooting onto the roundabout. As you can see, you've got quite a long slip road, and then you've got a roundabout where they've got these landscaping boulders, and our concern was if road users overshot the giveaway line, they could potentially collide into those large boulders and bring a vehicle to an abrupt halt, potentially causing injury to road users. So we recommended various measures. One was beefing up the size of the chevron signs, which the contractor has done. So as you can see, the chevron signs are quite big with yellow backing, so they stand out quite far back, which encourages road users to slow down. And another thing is that they've actually created some mounding in front of the boulders, whereas before the boulders are quite low down, so a vehicle would hit them, but now a vehicle may actually be diverted away from them, and the boulders are a lot higher above ground level. So it's good to see that again that the contractor has taken our recommendations on board. One of the common collision types is vehicles overshooting, because drivers, especially at high speed, do misjudge the braking required, and one of the areas where they do run off and overshoot is onto the central island. So normally you want those islands to be clear of obstructions, but with this scheme
we're trying to make it as safe as possible while still retaining some natural features and aesthetics. Yeah, this red line here is basically it's to try and encourage cyclists not to cycle to the edge of the shared footway.
So obviously you observed quite a lot of silting and sediment at these drop curbs, so in wet weather you're going to get a lot of ponding there. Could potentially be a slip hazard for pedestrians and cyclists, especially in freezing conditions if it turns to ice.
Yeah.
So you obviously need to measure the levels there and remove the low spot, because there is a gully there but it's not collecting the water. Okay, another thing to consider on a high-speed road is passively safe street furniture. So on a scheme like this, because speeds could potentially be quite high, you need to make sure that any street furniture that you install is forgiving to road users, i.e. it's crash friendly, which means that if a vehicle does hit them, they will either shear away or they will deform around the vehicle and bring a vehicle to a more gradual halt. And we can see that these items are actually passively safe and they do meet the requirements.
It's a sort of lighter material, fragments on impact, so so it'll do less damage to the vehicle, allow the vehicle to continue further without too much deceleration.
We have audited schemes previously, not this one, where lamp columns have gone in on a high-speed road which weren't passively safe, and it's one of the things we picked up. And unfortunately, that did require the contractor to replace about 50 new lamp columns. So it's one of those things, if it does get missed off at detailed design and it gets installed, it can be quite expensive for the contractor to correct. But it does perform an important road safety function, so it is important to get it correct. I hope that's given people a bit of a flavour of the sorts of things that we pick up on a stage 3 road safety audit. You get an idea of what's involved and the sorts of hazards that we pick up. So this is one of a dozen visits we've done so far to this scheme. I expect we will be back here again as more bits get open to the public and more gets constructed.
At the end of the day, we're just giving safety recommendations, but it's always good practice to take these things on board. And which seems to be the case with this particular scheme.
Yep, roll on the next audit.
Yep.